Hey everyone, before I begin the video, thank you for watching, thank you for commenting, and thank you for liking. If you haven't done yet, click that subscribe button, get you notified and alerts whenever I drop new content. I do apologize, I haven't been able to get a lot of content out over the last couple months. It is hunting season, and like a lot of other fishermen are, I also do a lot of hunting too as well. And I've got a lot of requests to talk about my hunting gear, so those will be coming up in another video. But today's video is going to be about the Exsence versus the Antares. Without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so I've had a full year to fish both of these reels, and they have impressed me. I own a lot of high-end reels, as you guys have seen on the channel, from the Stees to the regular Antares, and these are by far my favorite two reels that I like to use. At times, it's hard for me to pick which one I want to pick up and pair with the other rod, it has just been phenomenal to fish with both. So let's kind of dig into it, but before I do that, I like to say that I've had a full year to fish both the Exsence and the Antares. They've been on multiple tournaments, multiple trips, multiple solo trips as well, and I've been able to kind of test them throughout the spring, the summer, and the fall. And again, these are my two favorite reels right now that are on the market. I apologize in advance, though. It's been a long time since I've had another video, but I promised an in-depth review of the two, and this is going to be just that. As starters, they come in two generic Shimano boxes. The Antares has the silver writing, the Exsence DC has the black writing. So pretty much the same boxes across the board. Not much of a difference at all, just standardized Shimano boxes. Let's open it up here. This is the Exsence DC. Opens up identically, has the exact same box for the most part, and the same bag. So I'm not going to talk about what comes in the box because these are pretty much the same thing. So let's kind of move this to the side. But they have their own little neat bag. The Exsence has the Exsence DC writing on it, and the Antares has the silver Antares DC writing on it. So let's take them out of the bag. All right, so at first glance, they look pretty much identical, with the exception of the finishes, of course. The Exsence features a matte black finish, whereas the Antares DC has the glossy silver finish, just like all the other DC reels. One thing you'll notice about the two are the handle sizes, and I want to point this out because they are not actually different. The only reason why the Antares is smaller is because this is an HG model and this is an XG model. So what does that mean? HG model is basically a 7.4 gear ratio to 1, whereas the XG is the 7.8 gear ratio to 1. So if I had an XG model in the Antares DC, the handle sizes would be identical. But because they are not the same model, the Antares DC is a little bit smaller in terms of the handle, and also the knobs are a little bit smaller too compared to the Exsence DC. So just to start off as disclaimers, in case someone points out that there's a difference between the handles, well, it's because they're two different models. The other visual thing here is the spool tension knob. If you look at the Exsence, it has the little grooves here. Let me get that to focus. It has the little cut grooves here, which kind of feel good on the fingers for you to kind of adjust to grab. The Antares, unfortunately, doesn't have anything to grab onto. It's like a smooth, solid finish here. So it's a little bit harder to adjust your tension knob compared to the Exsence. Now, is it a huge deal breaker? It's not, but I always like to point out the differences because I know a lot of people are going to be like, hey, what are the main differences? Diving into it, the next thing here, moving on to the internals, they feature pretty much the same internal braking system. And we're going to open it up, and they open up pretty much the same too as well. They have the 4x8 DC braking system. And here's the Exsence, the 4x8. So what it means is you have the 4 internal braking dials, and then you have the 8 externals. So the internals are basically featuring different types of line that you have. So you could be fishing mono, floral, braid, and depending upon which one you use, it basically applies more brake. And again, they're the same in terms of the 4x8 system that you can find in both reels. The main difference between the two, though, is that you notice the Exsence has the Exsence tune right here on it, whereas the Antares is just a normal 4x8 DC. So what's that? What is the difference? Does it actually make a difference? Well, to be honest, it was really hard for me to find any subtle differences in terms of the two braking systems. One says that this is Exsence tuned. This was basically the standard, I guess, of the 4x8s. It was hard to tell the difference. However, the Exsence DC has, or was, more audible when it comes to the actual DC wind. So when you're flipping this reel, when you're casting this reel, you hear the wind a little bit more, and I'll see if I can demonstrate that versus the Antares. So you can tell that there's a difference between the two reels in terms of noise, which I would then simplify saying that the Exsence is using more braking power compared to the Antares. That is just kind of what I'm assuming. It's not a scientific guess, but it's just my assumption that because you're hearing more of the DC wind, you're getting a little bit more braking in the Exsence compared to the Antares. Now, to me, did I notice a big difference between the two when it came to braking? Not really. It pretty much kind of did the same thing. You know, the internals are pretty much the same. The 4x8 is the same. I pretty much have them set up on the same exact, you know, braking system, you know, on the external dials too. So it really didn't make a big difference when it came to actual performance. But in terms of audio, this one was definitely more audible compared to the Antares DC. Now, the biggest difference, though, between the two is the drag and the weight of each reel. But let's talk about the drag first. The Exsence DC has a very audible drag, and they call it the exciting drag sound by Shimano. Yeah, what a funny name, huh? But if you can hear it, kind of, you know, you hear their clicking noises. And the Antares DC doesn't have it. So it's just your normal drag system here in terms of, you know, the exciting drag sound that Shimano has in the Exsence DC. Is it a huge difference? Not really, but to be honest, it is kind of cool that you can hear your drag in this. So if you feel it slipping or hear it slipping a lot, you can just tighten up that drag and you'll have less slippage when it comes to your drag system, kind of like a spinning reel. So going to the weight, the Antares DC is slightly lighter. And when I say slightly, it's ever so slightly by only a couple grams. It's not that much different when it comes to the actual weight of it. Did I notice a difference? Not really. You know, when I held this in my hand compared to this in my hand the whole day and on a rod, it really couldn't tell the difference. It's ever so different in terms of grams, but in terms of specs, the Antares DC is a little bit lighter than the Exsence. So if I had to buy one and only one of these reels, which one would I want to get? Well, everyone's going to have their own opinion on it, but in my honest opinion, I would prefer to get the Exsence DC. Not only do I love the fit and finish of it with the matte black, I also love the couple other things, the drag, I also love the spool tension, makes it easier to adjust, especially in cold weather. I think that's a huge thing. When it's nice outside, you know, obviously you can always control anything, but when it's cold and, you know, it's hard to feel your fingers and you're like moving things, it feels nice to be able to kind of feel these, the knob here and kind of move it. I also like to hear my DC too as well. I know it sounds kind of weird, but I also like to hear my DC. It's just kind of cool, you know, to have it. And so I like the fact that this is more audible, which to me it feels like it's using more braking in the actual Exsence compared to the Antares. But again, there isn't really much of a difference, guys, in terms of performance. So if you're like, hey, you know, is there a big difference? Not really. You know, both are phenomenal reels. They're pretty much the same in terms of performance. They're just the little subtle differences that are between the two. I mean, if you look at this reel, it's got a ton of fingerprints on it, and I basically just wiped it before the video, and it's got a ton of fingerprints on it, which isn't a huge big deal. But, you know, it's nice to have this matte black finish because it doesn't leave any fingerprints on it. So just kind of my 2 cents on it. So this is going to be basically upon what you like it the most, but is there a huge difference between two performance-wise? Absolutely not. So this is just my opinion. I'm sure you have your own. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about the two different reels. Drop a comment. Let me know which one you guys prefer, if you guys had the ability to fish with both. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you guys hit that like, subscribe button, and we'll see you guys on the next video.